Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure being hometown and at the JCC. This place has a special place in the hearts of my wife and I, and that it was in this very building that both of our children learned that they were not going to be professional basketball players. So the JCC is quite meaningful to us. Let me start off by telling you about a fantasy I've had with some regularity. It starts off with a team of us overpowering his security guards. Okay, well, it's a fantasy, so when I go whole hog, I single-handedly overpower his security guards. I burst into his secret bunker. He grabs for his Luger. I slap it out of his hand. He grabs for a cyanide pill. I knock that out of his hand. He comes at me with otherworldly strength, snarling. We grapple. I manage to get him down on the ground, get handcuffs on him, and then get to say, Adolf Hitler, I arrest you for crimes against humanity. So at this point, the Medal of Honor version of the fantasy ends, and the viscera start. What would I do if I had Hitler? And if I really allow myself to go there, it's not hard to imagine. Sever his spine at the neck, leaving him paralyzed. Take out his eyes, puncture his eardrums, cut out his tongue, leave him unable to speak, to move, to express, only to feel, inject him with some cancerous thing that's going to fester in every corner of his body, and he spends eternity with. This is what I would want to have done to Hitler. I've had this fantasy since I was a kid. I still have it now and then. And when I do, my heart beats faster, my breathing speeds up. All these plans for the most evil soul in history, most deserving of punishment. I got a problem with that, though, in that I don't believe in souls or evil or punishment. And I think the word wicked only belongs in a musical. But at the same time, there's all sorts of people I'd like to see killed. But I'm against the death penalty very firmly. But there's all sorts of violent, schlocky movies I like going to, but I'm for very strict gun control, except for this one time at a kid's birthday party, we went to this Laser Quest place, and I had so much fun hiding in a corner, shooting at people over and over. In other words, you're a basic confused human when it comes to figuring out the place for aggression in our lives. Now, I don't need to get up on a soapbox here about the problems we have as a species with aggression. We have had poison gas come out of shower heads, anthrax in letters, passenger planes as missiles, mass rape as a military strategy. We are a miserably violent species. But there's some complications with that. The first one being, we don't hate violence, because when it's the right kind, we leap forward to watch it, we hand out medals, we disproportionately vote for, mate with the people who are best at that kind of violence. We don't hate violence, because when it's the right kind, we love it. The other complication is we are the weirdest species on Earth when it comes to being violent. Okay, we could be like any other chimp out there and like cudgel somebody over the head and be violent in that way, but we can also do something no more physically taxing than pulling a trigger or signing an order or looking the other way or damning with faint praise or being passive aggressive. Let me give you an example of one of the weirdest things I've ever heard about human violence. And this had to do with something that occurred in Indonesia in the early 1960s. There was a right-wing coup that brought in a military dictatorship for the next 30 years. And in the aftermath of this, there was a vendetta against every leftist, every atheist, every communist, all the usual. 500,000 Indonesians were killed over the 6 months after this coup. Right-wing death squads would come and kill every person in a village, the usual. And some decades later, the writer V.S. Naipaul was traveling through Indonesia, and he heard this crazy rumor, which was sometimes when those death squads would come to a village to kill everyone, they would bring along with them a traditional gamelan orchestra. One day, Naipaul meets one of these old grizzled veterans of these death squads, and he's some national hero, and talking to him and saying, oh, yes, yes, we got rid of our nation's enemies, we did such a great job. And Naipaul eventually worked up the nerve to say to him, you know, I heard this story that sometimes you guys would bring a gamelan orchestra when you would come to kill everyone. He said, oh, yes, yes, whenever we could, we would bring one along. And Naipaul said, why would you do that? And in one phrase, the man summarized everything that is bizarre about us as a species. He looked puzzled and he said, to make it more beautiful, of course. If we're a species that brings along orchestras to make our genocides more beautiful, we are a very complexly violent species.